the whole thing was going quite well. 10 years, we were still holding on to 25 Bitcoin. I mean, I've got some stories like everyone else, right? Like, I think at some point I changed the exhaust on my car, and that probably cost like 2 Bitcoin. And you look back and think, oh my God. But we did well to keep hold of most of it. And yeah, after 10 years, we decided we'd go on this trip to El Salvador, right? Because why wouldn't you want to go and check out what's going on over there? And it was kind of like a trip of a lifetime celebration of our Bitcoin journey. And man, that's where this like our lives turned into an insane like Netflix episode, right? It's so bizarre to talk about, but on the last night of the conference, we were all like fired up and excited. So we rushed back to our Airbnb to start playing with a Bitcoin project that we'd been building ourselves, right? And we needed to transfer some funds into Lightning, do some test payments, all this sort of stuff. And there we were, man, like thousands of miles from home in El Salvador, of all places. And we discovered that unfortunately we'd been hacked. And someone had got hold of our seed phrase and wiped out the whole stack of 25 Bitcoin. And yeah, that was quite a kick in the nuts, is probably the best way I could describe that. And what I will do, right, is I'll share some of the mistakes I made, right? Like I've explained it at length before, but it's always valuable for maybe people that need to maybe think about their own security more. So basically, what the big mistake we made is we got complacent, right? And in Bitcoin, you just cannot afford to be complacent about anything. So we'd done the right thing by taking self custody. Um, but back when we were first buying our Bitcoin, there weren't hardware wallets, there weren't, metal plates or even better, metal washers to store your seed phrase on. So we did the best thing that we thought we could do at the time, which was we used an open source password manager called KeePass, right? So it's not like it's not like a centralized password manager like LastPass or some, third party company. It's actually a piece of open source software that you host on your own device, right? It's totally self-sovereign, and it stores all your passwords. So we kept our passwords in a KeePass file, and we also encrypted that file. So you'd need a password to get into it anyway. Now, that's one way of taking self custody and not putting your seed on metal. But obviously, if you have a file like that living on a hard drive and that hard drive fails or, you lose your computer, then you need to back it up. So my dad, being a software engineer, is pretty used to this sort of stuff. He's like, you have to back up important files. So what he did is he backed it up to the cloud, which obviously we all know now, never ever store your seed online. That's crazy thing to do. Um, but that's what we did. And it wasn't an encrypted file. And obviously the cloud storage was encrypted as well. You needed a password to get into it. So how did we get done then? Well, what we learned later through like working with the police and different, investigatory bodies in the UK was they said, well, guys, did you know that both your name and your dad's name and your home address and every Bitcoin you've ever bought and every transaction you've sent is being circulated and sold on the dark web? Because what we never realized at the time was we had bought our Bitcoin from Mt. Gox before it got hacked. And when it got hacked, we thought, oh, phew, we're in self custody, didn't affect us. What we never realized is that the hackers made off with the Mt. Gox coins, but they also made off with all their KYC data. So, that stuff's been sold over and over and over again on the dark web, including our information. Well, that was me for that 10 years, right? Like really hodling hard, like not spending as much as I could and with no plans to really use my Bitcoin. I was just hodling it. And what I realize now is, I look back and I think, that was a sizable amount of money, but, there was loads of trips that I didn't go on, certain holidays I didn't take, or certain experiences that I didn't allow myself to enjoy because I was delaying my gratification so aggressively. And it sort of dawned on me afterwards, having lost it, like, wow, if I'd have, we had over $1 million worth of Bitcoin. I could have peeled off 5 grand and gone on a nice holiday and made some memories with my family and loved ones, but I didn't because I was hodling so hardcore. So one really important thing and a different approach I'm taking now is I spend my Bitcoin a lot more because I realized Bitcoin is not your scarcest asset. Your scarcest asset is your time. You know, if you hodl in all the way to your deathbed, then you've made a mistake. Life is for living and enjoying, and Bitcoin is just better money, a better tool. Just use it as money, save in it. If you want to save for your future, do it in Bitcoin. But other than that, go and live your life. You know, don't delay everything.
I love that message, and I think it's very hard for Bitcoiners to learn that message because we are always hearing hodl, don't sell. Like we always hear the messages, what will Bitcoin be worth long term? And so maybe we even go in the wrong side that our time preference is too low, that our time preference is like, so we don't want to give up on our Bitcoin, that we don't want to spend anything. And it was super hard for me. You can remember you were at the Bitcoin Way. The Bitcoin Way and Tony are the reason why I started accepting Bitcoin as payments. And now most of my income is actually in Bitcoin. Over 50% is in Bitcoin because I now on the other side, I'm like, if you want to give me fiat, you have to have a really good reason why I even have to take that money. Obviously, for example, YouTube ad revenue and all of those, like I don't have a leverage with them. But outside of that, like I only take Bitcoin whenever I can. And so you come naturally to the point where you have to spend your Bitcoin because you have to live if most of your income is in Bitcoin and your fiat income is not enough to cover your fiat bills. And also spending Bitcoin is a thing where you like only one freelancer of mine actually takes Bitcoin, the second sometimes, and the third not. And so it's like, I had to come to the realization that I have to sell some Bitcoin to exchange it for euros, dollars, whatever, to cover fiat bills. And this was the first time ever. And it was like, I don't know, like a couple of months ago, maybe half a year ago, something like that, for the first time ever where I had to like sell my Bitcoin, and it hurted so much.
You know, people don't get lucky with Bitcoin. That's not how it works. You have to make your own luck. So Bitcoin is the opportunity, but if you want to get lucky, you have to play an active role. You can't just sit there and expect good things to come your way. By doing the research, by buying Bitcoin, by getting more comfortable with the technology, by trying out new hardware wallets, you know, if you'd have put more work in when you said you wish you had, you would have got luckier, right? If I'd have put more work in and studied every hardware wallet that came out as soon as it came out and put that work in, I'd still have my Bitcoin. So it's how lucky you get is directly proportional to how much effort you're going to put in. And then, only then will you look lucky to everyone else on the outside.
I have an interesting story I want to share with you. I just a few days ago, someone approached me like, "Oh man, how did you get Seyr on the show?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's basically super easy. You have to do for 1.5 years every single day 12 tweets to build up like Twitter following of 7,000 followers. Then start a podcast, do a podcast every single day for 6-7 months, and then while you do the tweets, while you still have a full-time job." And then all of a sudden, he out of nowhere follows you on Twitter, and then you write him, and then you have him. It's like, yeah, like put in a lot of proof of work, and you will be surprised because people always think like there's some secret connection I had to some, like maybe some like assistant or like some uncle or like whatever. I mean, it's like very unlikely because I'm an Austrian, he's an American, all of that, but. It's always like people think there are weird shortcuts and a lot of luck involved. But if you look at 99% of all success stories, they are all built on hard work. And then they put so much hard work in there that then small things happened that could be considered luck, but the luck was forced because they put in a lot of input, they put a lot of exercise, they put a lot of like, no matter if it's sports, business, like whatever success story you want to pick. I won't shut up about Bitcoin till it's the base layer of our financial system. And since I've been in Bitcoin, there's been so many new projects coming out that says like, hey, there is a part of the financial system that we can now do with Bitcoin. And lottery is a thing that I've never thought about because I don't play lotteries. I mean, I played the Bitcoin lottery. It was actually my first ever lottery that I ever played. So I've started with lotteries on the Bitcoin standard, I guess. But it is something that I'm like never thought about. And then it's like, oh yeah, you can build that with Bitcoin. actually way better, because you can prove all the entries and you can prove the payout, and you can actually look at all the data and you're like, oh yeah, I know I fairly won or lost. And with those, like, if you're just buying a lottery ticket and you see the TV, who says that they pick a number that they bought? They can pick a number that doesn't even exist. I'm not saying they do that, but it's possible. And so you have to trust a lot into those institutions, and they probably get highly regulated. I have no clue, but like I would imagine that they are having a big regulation hammer over them. But the nice thing is, with those Bitcoin lotteries, we don't need the regulation. And it's just like one more thing where you're like, hey, I can have a Bitcoin lottery. I don't need the fiat system, and I don't need a third party that I trust, because I can prove everything. How amazing is that? Like, I just love when people get Bitcoin in real life and actually build Bitcoin as the base layer of the financial system. And then there's like one small application on top of that, like the lottery.
Well, yeah, and man, I'm glad that you get excited about the same thing I do. So the best analogy I come up with is like, um, you see a lot of people saying they're like innovating by maybe accepting Bitcoin as payment for, t-shirts, hats, all sorts of other things. And in a way, I'm not having a go, right? Like I love when people accept Bitcoin because I want to live on a Bitcoin standard. But what excites me about the lottery is a bit like you said, if you think of like taxis, right? Taxis, we used to ring for a taxi and it was all on old tech. And then Uber came along. Now, Uber didn't really change what we're doing. Taxis already exist, moving person from position A to position B using a car. But all that Uber did is said, well, we're still going to do that, but we can make it slicker because we'll use the internet instead of old communications technology. And I think we're doing a similar thing with Bitcoin, right? Lotteries existed before and they can exist again. And the premise is the same. You need to pick a winner at random. But by building it on Bitcoin, it's faster, more efficient. It's, provably fair. It's verifiable because, look at these lotteries is really interesting. Is in the UK, especially, they have dedicated point of sale machines in all these little shops. They have paper tickets. They have all of this antiquated technology that's expensive to run. And quite a lot of the value raised from the lottery is extracted by the fact that they're using inefficient technology to do it. And man, we can make this so much cooler as well. So when you go in to buy a national lottery ticket in the UK, you don't really know what it is that the lottery is supporting. It's probably being used to support good causes like building a school or funding a hospital, but you don't get any say over that. And the money just goes into like some black hole, right? Nobody knows where it's going. There's probably a CEO getting paid £500,000 a year just to pick balls out of a ball machine, which seems excessive to me. And they're using paper tickets and stuff, and it's all kind of crazy. Whereas, we're going to add loads of features to this, but what if you could vote on the charity you wanted to support when you bought your ticket? So actually, you're getting a say in where the funds go.
The first thing that every Bitcoiner does, and the most important activity that every Bitcoiner keeps on doing, is buying Bitcoin. And I personally use Relay to buy and sometimes also spend or sell my Bitcoin. And there are two main reasons why I do so. The first one is it's Bitcoin only. They do not do any shit coins. They do not do any cryptos, any stocks, or anything else. This is a tool, an app that is fully focused only and solely on Bitcoin. The second one is self-custody. They give you the keys to your Bitcoin the moment you buy them. You never give them the control over your Bitcoin, and you don't have to trust them because you can verify that you and only you have the keys to your Bitcoin. There's no third-party risk. There's no freezing of your assets. There's no rug pulling. There's nothing of that. Download Relay, the app, on your phone, or go to relay.app on your browser and use code Robin to save fees and get cheaper Bitcoin. I want to tell you about something very special to me. It's called micro seed. If you hold your Bitcoin in self-custody, and you should, you know how critical it is to secure your seed phrase. You should not have them on paper. You should not have them on anything else than titanium. With micro seed, you can engrave your 12 or 24 word seed phrase, the entire seed phrase, onto a 1-inch small washer. Yes, just one washer. All 24 words on that one washer. You can hide that thing everywhere. And even better, you don't need to buy a new kit every time you have to get a new wallet. You can make unlimited backups because MicroSeed is not selling the washer. MicroSeed is selling the device that stamps the washer. So you get the full kit with the device, with the washers, with the hammer, with everything you need to get started today. And you can make with that unlimited amount of backups. Go now to microseed.io.